Hey everyone, it's Minty. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I improved my, wrong sketchbook. This old thing is what I'll be flipping through to show you everything that I did to improve my art over the course of about 2 years. In case you're new, these are a few examples of how my art currently looks, and I'm pretty happy with it, but it didn't happen overnight. So let's take a dive into one of my first sketchbooks to show you how I actually got to this stage with my art. I used to struggle with the whole fear of the first page. Some of you can probably relate. So this actually wasn't the first drawing in my sketchbook, and I came back to fill in these 2 pages once I finished the book. Okay, this is a better example of how my art used to look in 2019. One of the things that I used to do was drawing along with YouTubers, like drawing with waffles. I still do it, and as you can see there, I was practicing a couple of poses. It doesn't matter if it's in real life or on YouTube, drawing along with other people will help a lot, especially if you're a beginner and you haven't figured out your process yet. You can follow along with theirs as a guide. Having other art videos playing along in the background while you draw also helps because it fills the silence and it also gives you a bit more motivation. This page is a good example of how I started out with character design. I just drew some basic girls and added in date of birth, names, some hobbies, stuff like that. The basic things that are going to help you get started. I always used to make sure that I was trying different art supplies. It doesn't have to be too adventurous, just something like pink and purple pencil as I did here to figure out what's going to work for me. At this point, I was already starting my YouTube channel, so I started doing different challenges like the 10-minute, 1-minute, 10-second challenge. And even if you don't have a channel, I would really recommend doing some of these because they are so useful for seeing what areas of art you need to work on, like speed, color picking, character design, the list goes on. Something that I wanted to mention was the fact that I didn't actually have alcohol markers at this time until later on in the sketchbook, and I used to use water-based markers, which don't really suit my art as well, so that did affect my improvement. But you have to remember that art supplies aren't everything, and a lot of YouTubers on YouTube have showed that through the challenge where you use old art supplies, and they still manage to make good art. So a pretty obvious tip is to use references. Now, it's not cheating, don't listen to the people who say that, it's actually really helpful. I did it with animals and poses, it can work with anything, and it's just really helpful to work on those proportions. Even if you have a cartoon art style, it's pretty important just to know the basics. As I flip through this, you're going to see loads and loads of random sketches. Loads of them are going to be girl faces and eyes, the things that I draw most often, and you just need to remember that it does not need to be some sort of portfolio. A sketchbook is for sketching, and doing those bad sketches every so often is going to help you in the long run. Even if all of those sketches end up absolutely terrible, you really hate the look of them, it's not worthless, okay? It's all practice. Everything's gonna add up, and in the future you're gonna thank yourself that you went through doing all of those sketches that you didn't like to end up where you are. That's what you have to do. You can't walk away when you don't like the look of something. Everything is gonna help you. Another tip is to practice realism. Now, unless you're a realism artist, you don't have to practice it all the time, but I would suggest doing it every so often, just so that you know how to draw things in real life before you transfer it into your own style. I did that quite a lot, mainly just because I enjoyed it. None of it was really done on purpose as a way to improve, but now that I look back, that is something that did really help me, so I would recommend that. Also, just try to do what you think is fun. If that means doing something that you don't usually draw, like here I drew some chicks in like an illustrative style, it's going to help you. You never know, you might be completely missing out on what you find the most fun, and by just every so often draw some random thing, you might end up loving it. This girl in the purple on the right is a really good example of how you can improve your character design, which is drawing people based off of objects, food, concepts, whatever it is. If you just take something as your inspiration, you won't have to sit staring at your page for a million years, waiting for an idea to pop in your head, because you've already got the base to work around. And you still get to use your imagination for the most part, you've just got a little bit to start you off. These 2 pages are more of a show of mistakes that I made, which are not drawing hands and shoes. As Sound Does Arts would say, stop running from your responsibilities. Hands and limbs are the things that are really important in your art when you're drawing humans, and if you don't draw them, you're not possibly going to get better at them, okay? You need to practice. Make it bad. It doesn't matter. Use a reference. That's what's going to help you. Now, something inevitable that's going to happen is art block. It happens to everyone, and something that I used to do and still do, is just draw all over the page. It can be bad. You can draw a bunch of monsters like I did there. It looks really, really odd. But if I didn't do that, I think that I wouldn't have drawn for a while, and that's okay. Sometimes you need a break, but don't be afraid to let everything out on the paper. This isn't something I did a lot, and I still don't do it enough, but here I tried out a few expressions, sarcasm, and I think it was happy tears. They didn't look that great, so I do suggest doing some more emotions if you don't usually do that much. That's a tip for myself currently because I am terrible at that. Now for the next tip, I never tried it out in this old sketchbook, but in my current sketchbook, I'm trying to add some lighting into my drawings a little bit more, and it's something that can improve a piece immediately if you do it right. I feel like people assume that you can't really do lighting with markers, but you actually can. It just seems scarier than when you're doing digital because you can't press undo when you add a bunch of yellow on one side of the face. Definitely try that out, but maybe watch a few tutorials first. Unlike me, I just went straight into it, and I did like how it turned out when I tried it in my spare time, but it wasn't as accurate as it could be, so watching tutorials is another thing that is really, really going to be on your side. It's pretty obvious that throughout this entire sketchbook, drawing with waffles was one of my main inspirations, which is fine. I had a bunch of other inspirations too. Just make sure that you have a wide range of artists to look at, the ones who you watch on YouTube or maybe you use as references on occasion, especially if having a unique art style is something that you want to work towards in the future. Having a wide range of inspirations is going to help with that instead of just focusing on someone and maybe starting to copy them a little bit too much. These two princesses on the right are ones that I drew in a video quite a long time ago, and they were based off of perfume and one of my necklaces. I think that's what it was, and it's another example of how working off an object for your character can help a design be more unique. The 4 drawings on the left page are from a challenge where I tried out different art styles from TV shows and drew a character with them, and that sort of thing is another fun challenge that you could try at home. It's very fun for figuring out which art style you might like better, and remember, art style is not everything, but I understand that everybody wants to find their own art style. It's just a natural thing. If that is something you want, I would suggest trying out other art styles, like completely different art styles. They can be super cartoony, anything. You might find something that you like. Comics are another fun thing that can help you with character design, so if you have a little story running around in your head, doing a comic is a pretty quick, depending on the detail, kind of activity that you can do to show that story. I think that this spread in my sketchbook was when I used a couple references from Pinterest and drew them in my art style, and hopefully you noticed back there that I annotated them. I added little labels and I did a smiley face and a sad face next to 2 things, and I wrote something like smiley face, eyes, sad face, hair, just to show what I wanted to improve on and what I was happy with. Knowing what you need to improve on is one of the most important things, but if you're only looking at the bad things, you might get a bit demotivated, so don't forget to point out the things that you do like. This double spread here was from another challenge, which was the 3 marker challenge, and in my process, I did the sketches and I just blocked out the colours. That's something that might be helpful to you when you're doing a character design, doing little thumbnails, just so that you know what it's going to look like on the bigger thing before you plot it down. You could also do that digitally if you take a picture of your final drawing and then kind of map out the colours on that. And just here on the left, I drew some feet as a practice. Now, practicing body parts like hands especially are really important, and you can do it realistically like I did, but I don't really know why I did feet because I'm never going to draw those. But I guess I don't know, if I ever have to, I've got that in my back pocket and I know how to do it. The next couple of pages are mostly from DTIYS's, which is when you draw something that another artist has done in your own style, with permission. That's the whole point of the challenge. And it's very helpful because you don't need to think of the ideas, you just gotta draw it. And not only is it fun, but it kind of helps you to look at their style as well and get a little bit of an influence. Okay, anyways, this was a drawing of Anna from Frozen that I did. I didn't have the best coloured pencils, they were just some really cheap ones, and I also had no idea how to use them, so it didn't turn out the best. So this is nostalgic when I did drawing 100 YouTube play buttons for 100 subscribers. That was about 2 years ago now, almost anyway. The drawing on the left here with the pink hair is when I tried to use water with my water-based markers, but I didn't really know how to do it, and I actually ended up destroying one of my markers. It just did not work after that. I don't need to know how to do it anymore because I don't use water-based markers, but if you do know, I guess you could leave the tip down below. I think it's when you dip them in water or something, or maybe that's what I did and that's why it turned out terrible. Here's an example of how hard it actually is to use alcohol markers when you first get them if you have no idea what you're doing, just like I did. I could not blend. I ended up using the colorless blender in the complete wrong way, which actually took the color off of the paper, which is the opposite of what you want. And I had to watch loads and loads of tutorials on how to use them. I do have a tutorial on how I color with them, but it's a bit outdated. I'm not a fan of it, so I can make another one if that's something that you guys are interested in. On the left, I drew some scenes from Studio Ghibli, and I think they turned out really cute. Even today, they might be old, but I still like them. Studio Ghibli is a really good reference for landscapes and backgrounds if you just look them up and paint them maybe. I've seen Hershey Draws do that, I think, and it looks like it could be really useful. And we finally reached the end of this sketchbook. I don't have much time left to do this voiceover, so here are the shoutouts, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to comment the yellow heart. Thank you for watching. Bye!